Hi everyone, welcome to Bikini Design Club. On today's video I will be showing you how I'm going to sew my swimsuit pattern Snowflake. It's a drafted pattern which I have uploaded the tutorial on how to draft your own swimsuit pattern Snowflake, starting with the Snowflake bikini and bra pattern and a basic block or one of the swimsuits patterns you already have at home. So if you haven't seen that video, you should first see that one, and then if you want to learn how I sew my own swimsuit pattern Snowflake, follow this tutorial today. I hope you like it. So before I start cutting my fabrics, I have all my pattern pieces and I tested on my avatar which colors and maybe a front cut that I wanted to make. And that's exactly what I did. I did a front panel with a different color, and so I'm going to be using today purple and red for this swimsuit. So first let me tell you exactly the measurements that I did for these front panels. So with your front piece, measure from the center fold 5 centimeters to the side. I'm gonna match the notch from my under bust, and then I made a vertical imaginary line parallel to my fold line for the front. For supplies, I will be using a zipper. I will not using this one, but I will show you later. My wires, which match my size. This is a non-stretch mesh, which is perfect to reinforce the bridge. Then I have my channeling, and then I have my power mesh, which of course I will use with the greater stretch horizontally. And then I have my lining fabric, which is nude today, and also the textured red and purple fabrics for my main piece, from the front and for the back, and for the panels that we have drawn on the software. Let's see if we like this one. Since I draw these lines, I now need to cut them and add seam allowance. That's what I'm gonna do now. Don't forget to add your usual seam allowance so that you don't do any mistake when you are sewing. I may skip some steps just because I have done so many videos for the bikini and bra pattern Snowflake in which I show in detail how to do a lot of things. So probably you will notice that I skip some steps during this video. I really feel that you should start by doing the bikini and or at least watching the videos for the bikinis and bra versions that I have available. I think I have more than 6 hours videos already uploaded. So I think you should start there before you jump into this swimsuit, okay? Well, time to cut all the fabrics and start sewing. You have seen that one of the fabrics that I included was the stabilizer fabric. So what I did was just cut a little bit more or less on the bridge area so that it stabilizes the area between the two cups. So the bridge, the center part. And I actually sewed a little bit of stabilizer to the power mesh so that my cups wouldn't separate once the swimsuit was ready. But you will see me doing it just to remind you why we have the stabilizer for this. We are going to cut the entire cradle in one piece, just like the pattern piece we designed, but then we are going to overlap a little bit of stabilizer fabric on the bridge area, and that's it. I had to cut the power mesh without fold on the center just because I didn't have enough length for the piece to be one piece. So you saw that I cut 2 front pieces of power mesh fabric, but then for the stabilizer I just folded and cut it on the fold a little bit. Now I'm also cutting a little straight pieces of fabric of stabilizer just to help me when I'm going to sew on the areas where I'm going to sew the zipper ahead. And before I forget, I sewed the center for my power mesh. Remember, I had to cut two because I didn't have enough fabric. So I cut it with seam allowance, and so to get rid out of this of my mind, I went ahead and sewed the center seam for my power mesh. Time to use the small stabilizer fabric that we cut and sew it to the center back of our main fabric. I did a mistake and I sewed it on the right side of the fabric, but please do sew it on the opposite side, so on the wrong side of the fabric, okay? And measure how much you want for your zipper, but I have a specific video for how to sew a zipper on a swimsuit, so I think it's better if you want to add the zipper like I did to watch that video. It's on Maria's swimsuit pattern, but I have a specific video for that also. By stabilizing this seam, it will make our life easier, because when we are sewing, we may have the tendency to stretch the fabric, and we don't want to stretch when we are sewing the zipper. And that's why I reinforce the area of the zipper with this non-stretch fabric. What I do is just go to my straight stitch machine and do a stitch and secure this, a straight stitch. I don't even care about the elasticity because it's not going to stretch. These are the front pieces of my swimsuit, and the seams, the vertical seams that we have here, instead of being hidden, today I'm going to use a flat lock stitch on my Bernina 𝗀𝗲𝗍𝗃, and I'm going to make them visible with red threads. So let's go ahead and pin this together. Instead of being right sides facing together like we usually do, I'm going to pin the opposite, so wrong sides facing together. I'm going to align these seams and I'm going to flat lock them. Let's see if it turns out beautiful or not. So if you have the Bernina, go ahead and look for the stitch number 5. And I'm going to set up my machine to use the configuration for that stitch, which only uses the left needle. And I'm going to sew my flat lock stitch. I hope you like it. So this time my fabric is with the right sides facing up and down, so wrong sides facing together, and I'm going to straight sew on top of the main fabric with the right side facing up. And you will see that this will make one of the flat lock look in one side it looks one way, on the other side it looks the other. And I'm going to sew both seams using the different sides so that you can see both results that you can get with this beautiful stitch. You can see how the stitch looks on both sides, and then you just need to open in stretched fabrics, and probably with a needle, a wool needle that you have at home or something, you need to go inside the seam and flatten the fabrics as much as you can. I actually used my loop turner, but it was a hard task to do that with that because of the hook in the end. Well, but you can see the beautiful result that I already have on one side. Now let me do the other side with the other side of the flat lock looking facing up. So now on the table you can really see the difference between the two sides and the two stitches and how they look. I really like both of them. It's really up to you to choose if you want to use them or if you don't want to use any of them and just sew right sides facing together and don't have any seam visible. Well, here I am with the loop turner doing almost the impossible, but in the end it was okay. I'm sorry my voice today is so bad, but I came to the office to edit this video on a Sunday because I'm sick and I don't want to contaminate all my colleagues. So I needed to come on a Sunday and my voice is just terrible. Sorry, girls. Time to grab your front cradle made of power mesh and sew the stabilizer fabric that we have cut to the center part of the bridge. So I'm just going to put it on the wrong side, and I'm going to sew it with a straight stitch on the edges so that the two fabrics are sewn together. On the lining side, it doesn't matter if it's power mesh or whatever, I'm going to remove almost completely the seam allowance. I'm going to leave like 1.5 millimeters, but I'm going to remove the seam allowances. And then I'm going to trim my linings, these seam allowance on my linings, the front and also the same for the back. This is to avoid excess fabric when I sew using this method with the understitch. Now let's sew the horizontal line under the bust from the power mesh to our lining for the front, and let's do the same for the back. So I'm also going to remove the seam allowance on the top edge of my back power net. Again, just like we did on the front, so that we remove the extra fabric, okay? Just the same amount that we did on the front. And on my lining, on my upper cup, I will need to do exactly the same, okay? Remove seam allowance. I decided not to add any foam today. My lining will be power mesh and my main fabric is just the swimsuit fabric. But you can also add foam cups if you want. You have videos for that on the snowflake pattern, okay? I'm not gonna go explain this very in detail because as I told you, you have this already filmed a lot of times on the snowflake. So I'm just going to fast forward until I think it's important to remind you some of the details. I did also top stitches on the cups, which I think it's very beautiful with the red threads. And my cups looked pretty nice in the end. You can see here how they look with the top stitch that I told you. I really think it's a nice touch and it helps to flatten the seams and have a nice finish once the swimsuit is ready. If you want to include a strap, this is the moment for you to insert the strap in between the two fabrics on the top edge of the upper cup, because later on it will be sewn together and we will do an understitch on the top edge of the upper cup, and so it will be too late to add a loop for a strap or directly strap if you want to sew it directly to your pattern. So if you want to go and do it now, not only on the front, on the upper cup, but also on the edge of your back, okay? I really urge you to see the snowflake contents because you have a lot of details like this understitch and so many others. So please do watch those videos before you adventure yourself on this beautiful swimsuit. I also did a basting stitch on the lower part just to make sure that the two fabrics are correctly aligned together. And then we are ready to set aside our cups once both of them are ready, because we are going to use them later on our project. So I'm going to prepare to sew my zipper, but I don't know why instead of sewing the stabilizer on the side of the lining, I sewed it with this line here. I sewed it to the main side, which is not okay. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to cut a little bit of this. The stabilizer that is sewn to the fabric is going to help the fabric not stretch when I'm sewing the zipper, which was what I wanted anyway. So it's going to be okay even if I cut now a part of my stabilizer, okay? So
please sew the stabilizer fabric to the side of your lining side, or of your second fabric, to the side of your inside of your fabric, not the outside like I did here. Not good today. So I'm gonna align this edge here to the top there, and I'm going to keep the seam allowance which I have drawn with the chalk on my fabric, and I'm going to put it in place, and I'm gonna sew it with a straight stitch on my sewing machine with an invisible zipper foot. I'm going to sew the zipper. I'm going to stop sewing the zipper more or less here. So I'm going to place this pin on the opposite side, on the exact same place, green also. So this is the stop. Okay, so I'm gonna sew the invisible zipper to this side, and then I'm gonna repeat the process on the second side. So let me show you again. This one is already sewn, but this one I'm gonna show you on my sewing machine how I do it, okay? Maybe it will help you, I don't know, I hope so. So I actually, I'm gonna show you on my sewing machine. I don't have a zipper foot, so I need to do this very, very slowly. And I do the best that I can so that it stays near the coils, but it's the best that I can, okay? So now let's align again the zipper with the fabric pin, and let's go to the sewing machine. now that we have sewn the zipper and that we have the zipper in place, my zipper is longer than I need, which is okay. What we are now going to do is combine right sides facing together of my center back, curved center back seam. Now it's time to pin the two fabrics together, and using the seam allowance that we know we have, 1 centimeters, we are gonna sew them together. When I'm gonna start sewing from the bottom up, I'm gonna be doing this on my overlock. And when I reach the part where I know that this is sewn together, so you can see here, this stitch, I'm going to come here and I'm gonna stop. And then I'm gonna go to my straight stitch, which enables me to be more accurate. And I'm going to overlap a little bit on the overlock thread to secure it in place. And then I'm going to come and sew until, taking this out of the way, until I reach a little bit over the stitch that secured my zipper. Okay? So overlock, stop, straight stitch, overlapping the overlock just to secure. I have a straight stitch which is elastic, so I'm going to use that one, and I'm going to come and pass a little bit up from my original zipper threads. So I'm going to do it, and I'm going to show you in detail so you can see exactly what I'm mentioning. So you can see the stitch. I came out here and left this small tail, which I can cut, and I can also cut the excess of my zipper. And now, slightly taking the zipper out of the way, I'm going to my straight stitch machine, and I'm going to do a stitch starting on top of my overlock to secure it, and coming on the seam allowance, directly coming here. I'm going to overlap this a little bit and stop, without, of course, sewing over the zipper. So you have to fill the zipper underneath, and you have, probably I'm going to use the zipper foot so that I can do this very, very sharp, exactly where I want to go, okay? So if I was going to draw a line, it would be, how can I do this so that you can see? It would be from here to here, okay? From overlapping there, and then a little bit over here also. And I'm gonna do that, and I'm gonna come back to reverse this to the right side and show you how the zipper is secured. Now let me show you something. I was so stupid. I thought well, and then I did it wrong. When I drafted the back power net, I had a fold because it was not going to have a zipper, but then I added the seam allowance, which is actually here, because I wanted to add the zipper, but then I don't know why I cut the seam allowance again, and I cut the fabric without seam allowance here, which is a mistake, because when we have these two sewn together, just like here, I shouldn't have removed the seam allowance. I don't know if you remember. We need to have the seam allowance there. So this is not okay. We need to have seam allowance here because we're gonna sew a zipper. Unfortunately, I do not have more fabric, more power net. The only small bits I have is this. So I'm gonna do something that I really, really hate, which is add a piece of fabric on this side so that I have more. I don't know if I'm gonna do that or if I'm gonna do another color. Yeah, you know how I am. I'm always aiming for perfection. Despite I'm never perfect, but I always try. So I cannot do that. I'm gonna use gray. I know it's not ideal, it's not what I wanted, but I'm gonna use gray. And I'm gonna cut these with the seam allowance that I was supposed to have. And then I'm gonna show you what to do next. So now that I have my new back pieces here, one is going to be on this side and the other one on this side. So I'm going to secure them together. And I'm gonna sew with the overlock, okay?
Now I'm going to use the main back piece as a reference, and I'm going to mark the exact same size for the sewing of the back. The curved center back seam, remember, one part is sewn and the other is left open, so that we can then use the lining to be sewn on the seams where we have the zipper, okay? So use as a reference the main fabric where you already have the zipper, and sew the lower part of your curved center back seam, and then I will tell you what to do next. Now let's place right sides facing together of our lining, and the same for our main fabric. Let's align the side seams and let's sew them on the overlock without elastic. So the same process for the lining and for the main fabric.
Now that I have sewn the sides, I have my swimsuit like so. This is, of course, the right side. And I'm going to place my lining. So right sides facing together. I'm going to align the top edge here. And I'm going to pin this in place. Remember, we had removed the seam allowance from the top edge here and also on the side and back. On our lining, of course. That's because we don't want any excess fabric on our lining. So you're going to see that this is going to be just perfect. So now align all the top edge all around, and let's sew this in place with our overlock. Align everything and sew everything using the overlock. Of course, here on the zipper area, what I'm going to do is I'm going to overlap this here, but I don't want a lot of excess fabric from the zipper. So I'm gonna trim this and I'm going to overlap this. And in this area here, instead of going and sewing this with my overlock, I will do this with my straight stitch just near the zipper, nothing else, okay? So near the zipper, I'm going to stop sewing on the overlock. I'm going to the straight stitch machine and I'm going to sew using the 1 centimeter allowance we gave here. I feel where the coil, the end of this top edge here is, and I sew straight just on top of it, okay? So just feel it, and with a straight stitch do a little bit here, and then the rest you can overlock, okay?
Honey, come and groove along. Come on. Rolling on the highway, you know. Wow. Come on and groove along.
Now that we have sewn the top edge like I explained you, we can trim. Remember this small detail here. We will trim the excess on this corner, but before that we need to secure the lining to the zipper and to the seam allowance of the zipper, just so that this is just perfect. So when this is going to be on the inside like this, see, we want to sew this in place, but we only want to sew the lining to the seam allowance, just so that when we reverse this to the right side, it's going to be perfect. So I have opened my zipper. Sorry about my voice and coughing, but I've been quite sick this weekend. Today is Sunday. I came to the office because I really wanted to finish this tutorial for you girls, but I'm not very good. I feel so tired. So I'm going to pin the seam allowance, the lining to the seam allowance and the zipper. And on my straight stitch machine, I'm going to, I think I need to close this a little bit more together, like so. And then I'm going to stitch this and this side also. I'm going to close this a little bit more before I do that. Let me see, I can close it till here. So let me see here. So I'm gonna close this a little bit more. Just this small bit here. And then I'm going to the straight stitch and I'm gonna stitch the seam allowance to the zipper with the seam allowance from the other side, okay? Well, I think this is not the most perfect job I've done ever, but I think it will work. I'm gonna trim this excess here. I have a very good video on how to attach a zipper to a swimsuit. So if you want to watch that video in detail, I think it will be better than this one, this small bit here of this video. And now let's see, when I reverse the entire swimsuit to the right side, how it's going to look. Now, if you wanted to add straps to the swimsuit, we should have sewn a loop on the back for the strap, or we should have included the strap so that it could be there on the back, and then on the front it would be included between these two fabrics on the front, right? I don't want to include any straps in my swimsuit today. Now I'm going to flatten the seam to the lining sides, and I'm going to do an understitch on this side here, and I'm going to repeat the process all around. So in fact, we slide this here, we flatten the seam inside to the lining side, and we are going to do a stitch. If you can't go all the way to the end there, it's no problem. Try to go as much as you can. Okay, and I'm gonna do this on the side and back, on the top of my bridge here, on the center front, and on the other side, and then I'll be back. Now, since I already have a lot of videos for the bikini and bra pattern, all the rest that you need to do, it's very easy, and you can find on the other tutorials how to do it, so I'm not going to repeat myself. I'm just going to show you that if you want to make this look better, you can hand stitch the lining to the zipper part here in this area on the bottom part, so that it is not open like I have mine, okay? So just hand stitch all the way this small bit here that it's loose. Once you have that done, you will decide if you want to have your cups with the underwire line showing or not. I have made videos for the bikini and bra pattern, so for the bra pattern, in which I have sewn my underwire lines showing on this side, and I also have a version of the swimsuit of the bikini and bra also, where the channel is applied inside. So it will be up to you how to sew your cup to your main fabric. Then on the bottom part here, if you are still wondering, it's very easy. You just place these two right sides facing together and you sew them, and you do the same to the lining, right sides together and sew them. And once you have these parts here sewn, you only need to sew the leg holes. And the leg holes, I apply the elastic on the side of the lining, and then I fold and I do a top stitch. So very, very easy to finish when you reach this point. Of course, today I added some playing with my stitches here on the front. I also added the zipper just because I feel that to put it on it will be easier for me. I didn't add, however, any straps, which you could have done, but you also have how to add the straps. You have that on the bra and bikini versions of the Snowflake. So I think today this is it. I hope you like this transformation, this pattern transformation. I would love to see your own, so don't forget to send me if you can, please. I really would like to see your results for the snowflake made according to your measurements and according to the tutorial that I've shown you on how to draft this.
And that's it for today, girls. Thank you for watching the tutorial. Don't forget to do a thumbs up or even subscribe our YouTube channel or make a comment and a question, whatever you need. Thank you.